I would love to call up our panelists, and when you hear your name, please make your way to the stage. Start with Crystal Janvier from Sundance Enterprises. Welcome, Crystal. Lindsay Booker from Springbank Psychology. Welcome, Lindsay. Milena Radakovic from Nexus Exhibits. Of course, wearing her We Do Red. Love it. Melanie Harris from Functional Therapy. Welcome, Melanie. And our moderator, Melissa Martin. There's too many things to put into your title, right? She's an entrepreneur, and she also has been so instrumental in delivering our programs of Strategic Edge and Bold Leadership. Welcome to our panel.
Are you ready? Turn them on. Hi guys, how are you doing? Thank you so much for having us, AWE. I'm very excited to learn and chat a little bit more with our panelists today. And instead of me letting you know what they do, I thought maybe we could start at the end. And if you're okay, Crystal, to let us know a little bit about your company and just how you got to be on this chair.
Okay. It's such an honor to be here this morning. My name is Crystal Janvier Romanek. I am the CEO and founder of a company we're called Sundance Enterprises. And what we do is we started and we're still doing our core businesses. We do oil and gas consulting, particularly in quality control. So we do technical stuff like inspecting pressure vessels, etc. And then recently, the last 5 or 6 months, I've expanded to do business consulting, and we specialize in supporting, in particular, Indigenous entrepreneurs. I'm an Indigenous entrepreneur. A little bit about my background. With AWE, I took their Next Steps to Success program, and it was phenomenal. It made me feel so supported. I just got access to different resources, support. It was just phenomenal, and I've kind of been involved with them off and on through the years in that capacity. And now I'm actually teaching the Next Steps to Success program. And the Next Steps to Success program is really designed to support Indigenous women entrepreneurs who would either like to start a business, they're in the startup stage, or they'd like to grow their business. And so it's phenomenal. It's a full circle moment. And yeah, that's a little bit about me. And I'm so excited to be here. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hopefully answering some of your questions and sharing a little bit about my journey and my story and how I got here. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Crystal. It's good to meet you, by the way. This is a nice spot to meet a new friend. Hi. Next up, Lindsay, go ahead.
Thank you. Crystal, that was phenomenal. I am humbled to follow. So I'm Dr. Lindsay Booker. I am a registered psychologist and the owner of a group psychology practice, Springbank Psychology. We recently opened our second location. We are based here in Calgary. We have 2 locations in the southwest quadrant. Our first location is in Springbank Hill. Coincidentally, the business was named before the location was found, but it was rather fitting. We're also located right next to Springbank Skincare. I have no affiliation with them, but they're wonderful. And it's just, we've got a nice vibe. We opened our first location in May of 2021, and I actually went solo with my practice in August of 2020. It's such a humbling reminder that there's not very many industries, not very many entrepreneurial endeavors that can launch in the middle of a global pandemic. But of course, the need for mental health was strikingly high. and I happened to be a youth and adolescent provider, and the need was even higher at the time. And I knew from that moment that there was an opportunity to make a bigger reach. I love what I do. I still do a little too much clinical work to still work on finding that balance of being a business owner and a group leader. But the need for mental health services is just so demanding. And while that's great for business, it's a reminder of, what our community needs and what our world needs right now with some of the challenges that we face. We grew very, very quickly, and within about 18 months, we had outgrown our space. We opened in a way that was really safe, and we'll talk more about that, and I look forward to learning more about other people's journeys. And we started the development for our second location, which we opened just in January of this year. I have a team of 14 psychologists, and we're a phenomenal group. We provide services for kids as young as 18 months, 2 years old, when we're looking at early developmental assessments, all the way up to an elderly population, older adults. We provide both counseling and assessment services. And one of my visions and my goals in the business is that we can meet the needs of families in our community in one location, in one place, when it comes to mental health supports. So I look forward to learning more about our other phenomenal businesses that are here today. And I will say that I'm the ultimate AWE fangirl, fan woman, and have had such an opportunity, and they've been such an integral part of my business over the last short 3 and 4 years. I've participated in the Bold Leadership programming, and ironically, my husband introduced me to AWE. He found them online and was like, you have to explore this. You have to look into this more. Bold Leadership was phenomenal, and the timing couldn't have been more perfect. That Strategic Edge, which I participated in next, was launched while I was taking Bold Leadership, and I was so privileged and humbled and honored to be part of that inaugural Strategic Edge group right as I was growing. It was absolutely vital to the opening of my second location, my networking, my collaboration. And along the same vein, at the same time, I was honored to receive a capital growth loan and continue to work with AWE in a variety of ways. And they've just been such an important part of my network. So thank you. I'm absolutely honored to be here, and I'm looking forward to connecting with so many people.
Thank you. On behalf of AWE, we're also fangirls of you and everyone else on the panel, so glad to know it's mutual. Perfect. Let's keep them down the line.
Wow, that was incredible. And I concur, AWE has been incredible support. I'm always telling anybody who's starting up that they need to join and look at all the different programs. And I just want to say kudos to you as a mother of 2 daughters who survived COVID. Mental health has always been something that was an issue during that time, and the work that you're doing, I think, is absolutely phenomenal. We need more women like you, in our community. My name is Milena Radakovic. I am the president and chief visionary of Nexus Exhibits. We're a visual branding solutions company, so we do everything where your brand needs to be physically seen or touched. Everything except the web is what I say. So from trade show exhibits to events, signage, to interior decor, office environment, and promotional products, we aim to save our clients 30% in administration costs. I wear other hats too. I'm also the Canada ambassadors to We Do, Women's Entrepreneurship Day organization that I worked really hard to proclaim Women's Entrepreneurship Day here in Alberta on November 19th. Woohoo! And I'm very proud of that work. And we have our summit, which is perfect, following up after this on November 19th here in Calgary and November 13th in Edmonton. And then we have 3 others across Canada. There are 7 ambassadors across Canada. And I have a new venture as a serial entrepreneur that I think I'd like to mention to you all. It's called Aspiher, ASPIHER.ca. It's a women's business and social club. So think of like the Ranchmen's and Petroleum Club, but aim for women, all about empowerment, collaboration, and really supporting women in a safe place. So that's enough.
I'm excited to see you on November 19th. That's awesome. Thank you. All right, Miss Melanie.
Hello, everybody. My name's Melanie Harris, and I am a physical therapist, practicing physical therapist. and CEO and founder of Functional Therapy, Inc. We are a multidisciplinary collaborative pediatric therapy company. So we provide physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech language pathology, behavior consultant, psychology, social work, dietitian, and educational consultant. And kinesiology, that's our new one. So, my business started off as me, just as a consultant. I took the leap from being an employee, seeing that I just had so many opportunities, and I'd been in the industry for a long time. So I did a lot of government contract work at the beginning, and then the work just the opportunities kept coming. So I got brave enough to subcontract somebody to fulfill a contract, and then I'm like, well, that wasn't so hard. So then it kept growing and growing and growing. So now, today, we have a building in St. Albert. It's 6,200 square feet, and it's right downtown on the river. We're very, very privileged to be there. When we leased our building, we had the plan to sublease out to other businesses, but by the time we moved in, we had enough people to fill it. So that was really, really exciting. We now have 20 employees, and we work with about 25 subcontractors to provide services for children and families, mostly in the Edmonton region and in northern Alberta. One of our biggest revenue streams is working in Indigenous communities through a fund called Jordan's Principle through the federal government. And then we are also a vendor with the provincial government. So a lot of our services are funded for families, but we are in that private fee-for-service category as well. So that's been a lot of learning, growing that piece. We have lots of big dreams, and our tagline is discovering stories of possibility. So that's really our goal, is to help children and families along their journey.
Thank you. Welcome. I'm excited to meet Melanie in person. I've seen a couple of these ladies on screen, so it's nice to see a few of you other ones out here too. I'm really excited to learn more. What I am kind of fascinated by is the differences of industries that everyone on the panel is working on, because that gives us access to so many different parts of this conversation. I was telling our table before, I think I've touched every part of trying to get money and getting money for a business, except when we're up here, I have not done the social side. So excited to learn more about the growth of some of these businesses. And I'm going to start with a question, if you guys are ready. Perfect. And then I'm not going to get into me, but if anybody wants to chat about any of that after, let me know. First question, what has been your best financial decision to support the growth of your business? If we're okay, maybe we'll start at Crystal. Are you able to answer that one?
Yeah, so I would say what really helped me establish and grow my business. So we started in 2013. So we've been in business for a while. And what really helped me to kind of grow and get to the next steps is I applied for a grant through the Government of Canada. It was actually rejected, but then I was able to take some of the learnings from that application and apply to another one. And also, actually, with the support of the AW, I had the facilitator help review my application, and it was better. And so we got a grant and also subsequently like a loan, and so that kind of helped us launch into expanding what we were doing in terms of our services. So I found that was really helpful, and as well, like we talk about the how important it is to have your financial picture in order and all that, and I totally agree with that. But it was also hugely networking. So finding people that are in the same boat or have launched or started businesses, which is why organizations such as the AWE is so important. I found that was even more important, because sometimes you honestly just need to have the courage and support, and even just someone to bounce ideas off in order to take those steps to get to where you need to go. So I feel like the social capital and the connections that we have, with other business owners is so important. Like I would say that was probably the most important component for me to help launch my business. So thanks.
That's awesome. Thanks, Crystal. I'm going to ask another entrepreneur, Melina, if you are okay to add into that a little bit.
Sure. So I took some time because I look at it as there's a different facets in the growth of your business. And one of the things, and I know a lot of people won't think of it, but the pandemic was a really big eye-opener for me. Just before the pandemic, I was in a huge growth. 2019 was a really big year for my company. We had great cash flow, really good revenue growth as well. And so I was looking at putting money into it for growth, looking at new target markets and scaling up with my staff. And then, of course, COVID came. My industry got designated, like next to the travel industry, the event industry, is non-existent, and it was 2 years of hell. And how I bounced back with that and making sure that I could still have the growth on it. After a couple of weeks of just crying and thinking I just lost my company, I said, no, let's go through this. And so for that time, I relied on grants, thanks to the government, to help out with that. But then it made me realize and do a deep dive into my cost. So looking at where my costs are, what are the cost controls that are needed to be put in place before I can go back into that growth stage. And then making sure I had prudent financial allocations, capital allocations, and where we had to be. So the one thing I did is said, okay, to grow, there's two ways you can grow. You can either do acquisitions or you can look at your market. Do you need to grow your market? Is it a target market that you want to do? Or is it also, I call it wallet share, looking at your existing client base and seeing how you can grow your client base with additional products and services. So I did that analysis and I decided I wanted to do both. So we had a strategy for wallet strategy growth. So that's looking at our clients, making sure that we are really servicing our client, listening to our clients, and looking at what other products and services they needed so we could grow that market. Then we looked at our target market. In our industry, I kind of did like a thumbnail in a sense. I only got 1% of the market. So don't worry about what the competition is doing. Look at how you can do it. How can you grow? And you have to do it strategically in the sense as your target market, and then look at what other markets are there. So in my industry, I can go after any market, but it's really looking at data and figuring out where we could expand. And that's when I said, I'm going to do it. Got a big loan, but it was the best loan, and making sure that it's an investment for the right thing. And the investment that I did was actually on technology. Because I did a whole bunch of cost cutting, how can I be more efficient in the processes? So I looked at technology to help me. And so we went and did a big analysis with my controller and committee, and we ended up going into Zoho One, streamlining all of our processes from looking at client CRM, to doing estimates, to final invoicing, to so forth, making sure that the capital that I was going to be getting from my loan, I am using wisely. And then keeping an eye on data and your ROI. Are you getting the right return on the investment in your capital? Because then if you are, then you can do a little bit more. And that's when I started to staff up. So I went from my low of 6 during COVID. Now we're back up to 12. And at one point I was at 20. So it's really methodical, looking at every single step of it.
Thank you, both of you. That's awesome. And I appreciate that they both kind of got a little bit vulnerable. I asked them a growth question, and they told me where they came from with that question. It was not just, I have this idea, I'm going to go be successful, correct? Which is tricky, and I have a feeling most of us in the room can probably relate to that. So I appreciate that. And then the data-driven growth, that's what we focus on too at AWE. We have programs that can support you in finding that data like you did, and pulling it out and making really wise growth business decisions. So exciting to hear a little bit of how you got there. And I'm going to jump over to the next question, and we will have time for questions at the end. So if you have any, feel free to write them down and we'll come back to you. Our next question is, how has education or mentorship influenced your financial decision-making and growth trajectory, and in what ways? And I'm hoping I can start with Melanie.
Sure. I was not a born entrepreneur. Was not in my life vision. I had some things happen in my life and just had these opportunities coming at me. And I knew I loved my work and I was good at it. And I was good at building teams. So when this whole idea of entrepreneurship came up, like, I did not know the numbers. I did not know what a KPI was. We had already started building our business, and we did not know a lot of this stuff. So, like Lindsay, I took the Bold Leadership program, and luckily for me, it was at a point when I was just transitioning from working full-time in my business that I had the space to work on my business. So it was so powerful that I could use all of my brain power, which was sometimes limited as a working mom, to just really try to understand how to grow in the right way. We're clinicians, so we often think with our heart first. And so we were making decisions based on, yes, we want to help this family, or for sure we'll do this contract for the school board. We know the government's cut all their money. But we finally got the right tools to kind of weigh that out, to really measure how we were making decisions, and they were more data-driven. We joke that we were building the plane while we were flying it, because we did grow really fast, like Lindsay. The demand for these services in our province are astronomical right now, so there's lots of opportunity. So that was really amazing. And when I talk about bold leadership, say that it changed the trajectory of our business. So the other thing that was really powerful about it is that we had the one-on-one contact with different types of consultants. So not only did I have one-to-one with a financial consultant, I talked to somebody about marketing. I talked to someone who had worked in government contract work for 20 years. So he had a really good understanding of where we were coming from and helped us really kind of look at how we were budgeting things and pricing things. And so that was really powerful. In terms of the financial piece, I have an amazing accountant who's been with me since day one, and he is so good at, I say dumbing down, but just so good at explaining things to me. And so he was really the first person that said, yeah, you can totally do this. So he kind of guided us to start with the bank. We got a Canadian small business financing loan. That's how we did our leasehold improvements in our building. And we thought we were just like on the road. We were hiring people. We had all these government contracts ready to come. And then things really slowed down in terms of procurement with the government. So the contract, a very big contract for our business that was supposed to come in 2 months, came in 8 months. And so we did have a cash flow crisis. We were in tight. Like we had hired people, we were ready for the work, but the money to pay for the work was not coming. So that was really hard. And I did rely on a lot of resources that I had through AWE to get through that. We leveraged everything we could, like my personal finances, my parents have loaned me money. BDC was amazing. Like they initially gave us a bit of a cash injection loan, and then we had a little bit of a crisis situation, and they came through in like 2 days. And so we were at a point where like, oh my gosh, like I'm not sure this is right, but we had this big, amazing building and this huge team. And then the government went on strike, which was super awesome. Luckily to say that we've come out the other side. So financial institutions was a big part. We currently bank with RBC, and they helped us get the initial loan. We have our advisors specifically works with health-based businesses, so that was an advantage. The tricky part about that is that they're just so restricted by the bigger organizations. So sometimes, I know what a debt servicing ratio is now. Didn't know that before. Our debt servicing ratio was a little high, so they weren't really willing to give us an operating line of credit. So it was a really tough time, but the learning we did through that is amazing. I did Strategic Edge with Lindsay, and Melissa was our coordinator. And again, it was the same time when we kind of came through that tough time, and now we were really ready to take the next step and grow. The opportunities that our business has and that there are in this province are just astronomical. So it's trying to make those data-driven decisions, not necessarily hard-based decisions, and really try to scale our growth in a better way. We did also get, with help of AWE, funding through the CDAP loan. So we got $15,000 to invest in our EMR system right off the hop, and I had support from one of the AWE consultants to go to the meetings and to help us advocate for different things. So I can't say enough about the support that we received through AWE, and I continue to use a lot of their services, the network, and the connections. Like Lindsay and I, our businesses are very similar. We're in different cities, but already, and this is the first time we met in person today, which was really exciting. But it's just enabled me to really think like an entrepreneur, and I'm really proud of that because I certainly did not before. So that's my biggest achievement.
So good. I feel like you're like proud mom right now. She just told you guys everything that I taught her, basically. It's amazing. Not just me, the team. And obviously her hard work was what we all wanted to support. Everyone could see the hard work that Melanie was doing, and we just wanted to provide the tools so that she could keep going. We didn't want you to have to stop, and we wanted her to get some rest and not stay awake and be stressed all night. Because
my hair was gray already. So that was a bonus.
Amazing. Doc, what do you want to add for a second location and mentorship? How did that go for you?
Yeah, it's first I want to say that it's such a privilege to be sitting up here surrounded by these amazing women, listening to these three women offer answers to the questions that are in my mind. I just have 1,000 thoughts in my mind, and I'm a psychologist. It's my job to talk. My husband is an engineer. It's like as far on the opposite end of the spectrum as possible from a psychologist, and he very frequently verbally and non-verbally tells me that, I talk a little too much. And what I've said to him is, I'm building an empire. And I used a much more flavorful word in that sentence as well. And this is what I do. And to pause and reflect and listen to the women sitting beside me and to look at an amazing group of women sitting in front of me as well, I'm going to go back to is just such an honor. But it reminds me that it takes a village. It absolutely, in the entrepreneurial world, as a mom, as a woman, as a human being, but in this moment, it takes a village. And we've listened to multiple amazing women already today talk about this idea of social capital. And I just love that phrase so much because I couldn't have built the business that I have in just a few short years and will continue to grow without the people that I've been surrounded by. And again, my business is very similar to Melanie's, and it is so awesome. We got to meet in person for the first time today, and we've been connecting for, probably 18 months in a variety of capacities. But we need to go back to that mentorship. We need to be willing to be vulnerable and put ourselves out there to connect with people, ask questions even if we think they're silly, ask questions even when we know that we should know the answer, because I too didn't know what a KPI was in that first meeting. I was like, I think I have to look that one up because everybody else seems to know what they're talking about. And surround ourselves by good people. Maybe one of the little spins for me is the ongoing joke in my business and in my family, because my husband, although he's got a full-time day job, and he built that ring road out there for us that makes all of us here in Calgary very happy. He helps out a lot with our business as well, and we joke that our business has become a little bit of a neighborhood affair. So our next door neighbor, who's a very good friend, also happens to be the individual who runs our group benefits that we're able to bring on for our employees. And we had a new neighbor move in, and we were just being neighborly and getting to know people and, small talk. Hey, what do you do for work? And he says, I run a contracting company. We build primarily medical practices. What do you do? And I was like, I'm building a medical practice. Let's talk more. And he was the lead on the build out of not only our first, but our second location. And then 2 doors down, one of my very closest friends gave us a recommendation for our business lawyer, and his small boutique law firm joined a big law firm in town, which she happens to be one of the lead lawyers for. So to have those connections, I think, is just so vital and so important. And I know we'll talk in some upcoming questions more about kind of my financial journey, because I have some very similar stories to Melanie. Particularly for me, it was learning about the order of financing. We had a great loan that we accessed, but before we could actually access the loan, we had to do A, B, and C. And would have been really nice to know that A, B, and C had to happen in A, B, and C order first before you can kind of get where you need to go. So go back to your village, go back to your people, be willing, be vulnerable, make those connections, just like everybody's doing today coming to an event like the Summit.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you both for your answers. And I agree, the networking part, right? Amazing. I've gotten quite a great network over the years, and I see some of you in here, and I am excited to know some of you have hooked me up with the resources that I needed at the time of our business growth too. I can see Marcella nodding because she's one of them, obviously, so thank you. I'm really excited to talk about that network and where it leads to that financial growth. So I'm going to move on to the next question. And actually, Doc, I'm going to start with you again. So as you scaled, how did you balance investing in growth versus maintaining profitability?
Oh, I'm still learning. That's a really, really good one. Balancing growth while maintaining profitability. So for us, the second location came a lot quicker than I ever expected. I think we are still handling it well. We just opened, a reminder, our second location in January of this year. And it took me until about 3 weeks ago to host the open house and the kickoff party for the whole team so that everybody from both locations could come see the new location, because I think I was still just recovering. We opened the first location really safely. It was in the middle of COVID, for goodness sake, and we picked a small space. We knew we had a couple people willing to join us, and we made it safe that if it was just me for longer than we thought, we could manage that. And we shockingly, well, maybe not shockingly, happily surprised ourselves that we grew really quickly and we outgrew that space. So we started the plans on that second location, and we hired and we had people ready, and we planned for the delays, which are part of growing. And we then, at that point, is when we turned to needing some outside financial support and looking at kind of that capital growth piece. We turned to BDC and AWE. Again, I mentioned that we were very, very honored to receive a capital growth loan through AWE that had an element of forgiveness built in. And then I've worked very, very closely with our AWE loan coordinators, one who's sitting in front of me and is smiling at me and is very helpful in so many different ways. And it's that balance of, okay, we're growing. Our new location is about 4 times as big as our first location, and I guess balancing that growth piece and keeping, profit positive is making sure we're making smart choices, but also being willing to take risks, being willing to put yourself out there. Opening the first location, opening the business came with a lot lower costs than growing and expanding a business. As Melanie mentioned, as a clinical provider and somebody who still does clinical work, I naturally still work in my business, and I'm working so hard on working more and giving myself permission to work on the business. And it's scary. It's really scary. It's exciting, but it's a trust process that you need to trust in yourself and that social group and that network that you've built around you as well.
Awesome. And I can't imagine the expansion, right? Because you feel like you've built something, you have one location open, and it should just be easy, right? You copy paste. I don't know if any of you have open second locations. It's not quite copy paste, is it? No, unfortunately not. It'd be great if it was. And I'm very excited to hear from our serial entrepreneur on how you manage this.
Well, you actually nailed it. It's taking that risk. And I always say, do as you preach. And I've always been a proponent for my mentees to always say, women are risk adverse. Yes. And if we do want to grow, we're going to have to do those painful conversations with the management team and say, okay, we can do it. So you're absolutely right on that. This was something that I was a little bit gun shy, as you can imagine. I lost literally 90% of my business within 2 months of COVID. And then, so survival was, for 2 years, was all I kept thinking about. And so now I am on that growth trajectory where I am now thinking about, okay, how's my cash flow? How am I doing it right now versus my growth expansion? Because just before COVID, I was actually expanding quite quickly. So I had a satellite office in Edmonton. I had another satellite office in Winnipeg. And then I had a partner office in Las Vegas. And then during COVID, it made me realize what was really important to me. And I did a little bit of a pivot on my personal growth as well. So that's when I learned family was really important to me. And the growth of my organization was a little bit different than what I had wanted to do in 2018 and 2019. I also looked inside my team, because that's the one thing that we have to look at is investing in your existing staff. And so in my growth, I said I wanted to make sure, can my staff handle the expansion and the growth that I've wanted to see? And that's sometimes that we can miss. And in my industry, I always say the show must go on. So in other words, if we're not ready with the materials for our client to be at their booth, if we're not delivering it and they come up and we're not show ready, it is a huge reputation on me and my company. So looking at growth, it's looking at everything. It's not like, okay, and I say, what is the target market? Can we hire more salespeople? Let's go after it. You have to take a look at everything. And it is coming in, looking at how are you going to take that capital expansion and where you're going to put it. And so my strategy then, and I think it's really important, you create a strategy for expansion. So mine was really on a gradual expansion, making sure that the processes and the procedures inside my organization were tight. That if we brought in an extra client, if we have to go and do a show in Colorado, or if we had to do a show in Qatar, that we could execute it well with the staff that we currently have. And so that was very important. Sorry, if I don't write it down, then I can talk forever. So I'm like, I had to put it in my notes. So, and that's where the data-driven decisions was extremely important. And that's one when we looked at, instead of expanding in multiple markets, we did test drives. We looked at one market and we said, okay, when it comes to agriculture, I can honestly say I've cornered that market. There are so many shows that are agriculture based. Then we started to look at clients in different industries and we said, okay, if we're looking after a handful in that, do we have the capacity to grow on that target market? What do we need? Well, we need an account manager to look after it. We need to have a fulfillment hub. So do we have the designers that can do it? Do we have space in our warehouse to handle the storage? Do we have the installers and dismantle people to go out and handle the setup? So it was very methodical, step by step, at looking at the whole client, I just forgot the word. The cycle of your client, from start to finish. Can you do it? And then I go back to the technology. Can you track it from the initial to the final of doing everything efficiently? And that's when we looked at all of the technologies that we had, from the CRM to the invoicing, and then the whole circle, the ERP system. Making sure that you have the products to fulfill it, that you have connections with logistics. Is it FedEx or is it Purolator? And ensuring that everything is working proficient. And that's when we said we're going to invest into the technology to have a 360-degree view of our client, how we're going to be servicing our client productively. And then we started hiring the salespeople to go after those new targets. So that's why I call it a gradual expansion, but really looking at the efficiencies first within the organization.
That's awesome. Thank you. And thank you both for those answers. I actually was a little bit curious, and I can't see that side of the room. Entrepreneurs, how many of you have a service-based company? Awesome. How many of you have a product-based company? There's a few, which is a little bit different, right? When we're looking at that growth, I owned a product-based company, and that growth, you get $1 million of not invoices, orders, but you only have $800,000 of inventory, and you don't have anything in the bank. I could have used a little bit of extra help to solve that equation, but it is that growth becomes a little bit different. Which the type of companies that we're working on, right? The service companies, I'm hearing a lot about the people and the support. And then these product-based companies, it's that physical product that we're looking for. So very interesting, and I love
Or
that.
if it's a mixture of both, because I'm in both.
Yeah.
I'm in product and service, so it's a whole different territory as well. That's why I'm saying it's like, you got to look at the expansion in a slow base, because when you have products, you're taking your cash flow and capital into the inventory as well. And it's looking at the cash management as well. What's the turnover on your products? So as an entrepreneur, you're looking at and managing a lot of different hats.
Thank you. Yeah, both. I can't even wrap my brain around. I'm not that far in my math, but good job. All right, moving on to the next question. Let's start down with Crystal. What financial tools or systems did you adopt as you scaled to manage your finances efficiently?
I would say, for me, it was just starting small, so understanding and mastering Excel. So, and it's so useful. You can literally do anything on Excel. So that's kind of how I started, and I took a course actually, because they don't teach you Excel per se in your university or your post-secondary experience. This is something you're supposed to know. Like, how are we supposed to know, right? And so I took a course through LinkedIn, which is awesome, an awesome resource as well. And then I started just researching what are some good platforms that you could use that are low cost or efficient. And so we really started using QuickBooks Online as well. And so I took a little course on that, educated myself on how to use QuickBooks. And then I'm able to just quickly generate quarterly reports, you name it. I'm sure some of you are quite familiar with QuickBooks. And then as well, recently we started using a program that's integrated with QuickBooks or other online software. And it really helps me with accounting. So, instead of having, a pile of receipts at the end of the month that I have to categorize and figure out which is what type of expense, we now use a program called Dext, so DEXT, and it's just a great little program where you can just, you have to go buy office supplies, and then you take a quick picture of it, you categorize, okay, so this is for office supplies, etc., and then it's all uploaded to your QuickBooks Online. So those are some of the software that I've used and I'm using, and yeah, it's pretty seamless. You can really generate so many interesting reports, especially through QuickBooks Online, and you don't need your accountant to do this. You can do this yourself. It's so easy. So, but just like anything else, it's data in and data out. So the quality of what you put in is what you get out as well. So, yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. Excel. I actually have a few SATE students in the room, and they have a course that they get Microsoft Office certified in Excel. So if anybody has questions on Excel, I see a couple of them that way. I'll point them out. Just let me know. It is tricky. And the course blew my, I'd been in business for 16 years before I took an Excel course. I had no idea it did that much. So agreed. Start there and move up. I also think we should do a bingo next year, Marcella, where if we say KPI, data-driven, any of those words, you guys can mark it on your bingo cards. I think we need to start playing around with that a little bit. Anyway, ideas for next year. I would love to hear a little bit more to Melanie about your technology, if you're okay with that.
And I would say this is an area that we are still currently evaluating. And as we've grown, our needs have changed so much, even within a year and a half. So this is an area where we're definitely doing some evaluation. So we also use QuickBooks Online for finances. The challenge is that we were really looking for an EMR, an electronic medical record software that was integrated, that could help us with scheduling, invoicing, and we're actually using our current EMR to also do some HR work, which it's not made for, which is not working well. So that's where we're at. Now that we're close to 20 employee, like we're up to that 20 employee mark, our HR demands are just through the roof. So that part is challenging. So the other trouble that we're having is that, so we took a chance on a startup and are using a program called Therabyte. So I don't know if there's any other clinicians, OT speech pathologists in the room, but this company is a Canadian company. The software was created by a speech pathologist and an OT. So the concept of the software was made for us. Like it allows us to track contracts. We do all of our scheduling, documentation, and invoicing from one calendar and one platform, which sounds glorious. But the difficulty we're having is coding our work. We have 4 different revenue streams. And even within our revenue streams, we have to track, in one contract, we might be asked to track 6 to 8 to 10 different line items. So the complexity of our demands just went up so fast. The other tricky part is that QuickBooks doesn't talk to Therabyte, so we're still doing a lot of manual extraction of data. Our big challenge, which is directly linked to finance, is utilization of our employees. So we are hiring a lot of people that come from government, and they're now working in private industry. So it's really hard mind switch to be thinking fee-for-service and billable time. This is something that we now know takes about 9 months for us to really help change their mindset and how they work and track their time. So we're still really challenged with the efficiencies of it. We're a Google-based business, so we use Google Sheets. We are just learning to use Google Gemini, and we're using AI more than we have in the past. The power of we're told, we're not quite there yet, but the power of Gemini is that it learns your workspace. So if we have Google Sheets, if we have spreadsheets that have different tracking and data on it, then that AI can help learn and extract data from multiple sheets. So we're in the very early stages of learning about AI and how that can help us, but we're thinking of having to change our EMR and to delineate. We're asking one program to do too many things, and that weren't meant for that. So it's lots of workarounds, which means lack of clarity for our people. So we're still working on being efficient, and in terms of financial tracking, we're still doing some manual distraction of data and evaluation, but I feel like we know the right questions to ask, and we have a bit clearer idea of what our needs are now as a business.
Awesome. I think you just said probably one of the most important things is know your needs before you sign up for the software, right? And we see that a lot in businesses, a lot in programs. People will be like, oh, I need AI because it's here and it's advertising and they've got great marketing on this one program, I'm going to get it. But really what we want to do is we want to identify what the problem you're having in your operations is, and then identify the solutions that not only solve that problem, but they're integrated and they work together. So we're not doing the extra manual work of trying to move data around, because oftentimes we do lose important pieces, and then we want to be able to make data-driven decisions. I'll say it one more time. I promise I'm done. It's my favorite part of the entire programs. Amazing. We're going to kind of move into a little bit of a wrap-up so that I can give you guys time to ask questions. But I would love to know, as we talk about growth and what's working and all of the fun things, I'd like to look back a little bit, and maybe we'll start with you, Milena. Looking back, is there anything you would have done differently when raising or allocating capital?
I would say one of the things, this was a while back when I did my first technology change, I read this book, From Good to Great. I don't know if any of you, it's the best book. And so I was like, oh my God, great. I need technology. I'm going to bring it into my organization. I'm going to make it more efficiencies. I've got the processes and procedures down pat. But what I didn't realize is I didn't have the right people in the right seat. I didn't have the good culture that I thought I had. And when I brought the technology in, it almost crashed my business. And when I mean crash, like I had staff leaving because they were not happy on what was happening. I was not transparent within my organization. And that's the one thing I'm a big believer is that if you want to have a good culture, what it starts is with vision. All the growth that I wanted to do for my company was inside my head. Nobody else knew it. So my team had no idea why I was bringing the technology, why I was making all of these changes in the processes and procedures. I was doing it in a silo. It was me and a small committee. I never asked for their input. I didn't see if they were happy with what they were doing, and that almost crashed my organization. And so the one thing I would say is step back and do an assessment, an internal health assessment within your organization, doesn't matter how small or big it is, and make sure that the team that you have, you're only good as your team. And really look at the culture that you're trying to build within your organization. Are you authentic and transparent with them in what you're trying to achieve? And so I did a step back, and I literally had almost like a one-on-one with them. And I found out that as collaborative I thought as we were, everybody was working in silos. And a lot of the people didn't realize and didn't feel that their teammate was being accountable for what they were doing. There was errors and mistakes that were being made that was costing me thousands of dollars that I didn't know that my controller was writing them off. So when you've got like $50,000 of write-offs every month and you had no idea because you trusted your controller knowing what they were doing, that was a huge eye-opener. And I literally almost had to clean house within my organization and start over again. And that's when I was becoming vulnerable. And I sat down with my team and I said, I need your help. We're a team. I want to go one by one. I want you to tell me, did I fuck up? Sorry, I'm going to say that. And if I did, what do you want to see? How can I make it better? And now I'm able to feel that I've got such an amazing team where I was always working in the business, and that's part of growth. I don't do that anymore. I'm now working on the business. And this is where I have more opportunities to work with my charity and look at a new business opening, because I have trust and respect for my team that they know where we need to go and what they need to do. And I'm the first one to give them kudos for it. I'm the first one to give profit sharing. I'm the first one to give them bonus, because I've got an entrepreneurial culture now where my teammates, they start thinking like an entrepreneur, and they start thinking about what's good for them is actually good for the company. And that was a huge learning for me.
That's amazing. I would love to come and meet your team. Maybe I feel like I should apply for a job, honestly. That sounds great. Doc, what do you want to add to that one?
I love that. Actually, just hearing that was so validating, because I can relate in so many ways. And it just reminds me, I think for me, one of those reflection pieces is don't hesitate to ask questions. If I had asked just a few more questions, we could have avoided our capital money scramble when we had secured the financing that we needed, but we couldn't get the check until we paid for A and B first. Well, unfortunately, we paid for C first, and had I known that, it would have been fine. Don't hesitate to ask those questions, and don't hesitate to take a step back and educate yourself with the things that you need to know. It's never too late, and I know I want to take that step back, and especially after our financial Bermuda Triangle discussion this morning, I want to take that step back. I want to go back and look at the budget. I want to go back and look at those profit numbers, because to take that step back and reflect is only going to help you move forward. Our next growth step is small, and it's just something that kind of landed in our lap, and we're going to open a satellite clinic, and it's going to have almost no overhead costs, but it's going to be an opportunity to do something new, something a little bit different, and apply everything that we've learned and do it in a way that perhaps isn't quite as stressful and a little more tolerable. But it just takes me back to, it takes a village. Connect with the people that you need to know and ask those questions, and ask them over and over again. And it's never too late to go back and revisit operating procedures that aren't working, and go back to the data, and go back to the information that's going to help you move forward.
Amazing. Yeah, that's awesome. And you ask, it's okay to not know. I don't know how many of you feel like you should know everything, but when I was running the business, I felt like I should know all the answers. And when I didn't know, I was like scared to ask or embarrassed. I don't even know. But as soon as I started asking for that support and for those resources, we doubled our sales. It was amazing. And our bottom line, not just sales. It was fun. All right, last question for these ladies, and then I'm hoping you guys are ready for some of yours as well. Knowing what you know now, what do you wish you knew, or what advice do you have for other entrepreneurs about unlocking capital and growing your business? Crystal, do you want to take that one?
That's a tough one. It's so philosophical and introspective. I would say for me, we talk about, and I know we all, our comfort level as humans is to start small and grow. And I agree with that, but I feel like for my own comfort level psychologically, that's how I grow. But I think for me is to have a big picture, have a big vision and kind of your end goal in mind, like whatever that is. So say, for example, with Starbucks, you know, their mission and vision is all about providing like the best quality cup of coffee and bringing smiles to people. Like it's something simple like that. So starting something, but having that big picture. So I want to be the biggest Western distributor of XYZ. Having that big picture in mind is huge. And I think like for me, like I am Indigenous, I'm First Nation, and I grew up like with a lot of systematic, internal and external oppression. And it was never even in my mind, in my heart, that I could be a business owner or that I could get a post-secondary degree. There was nothing in my realm that even allowed that. And so for me, it is all about like escaping that small picture, I just want to make enough money to pay my bills, and that's how I was too. I want enough money to pay my bills, and that I could be there as a mom, right? Because not only as a female entrepreneur, we're also balancing growing and starting our businesses, as well as I'm still the person that does all the 90% of the chores in my house. Well, I have a cleaner that helps me once a week, but I still have to do all the, most of the cleaning, most of the cooking, etc., and parenting. And so we have a lot on our plate. And so that's why I feel like if you have that big picture, and now I have someone that comes in and helps me clean, right? But I would have never even thought that. So overcoming the idea that you just want your little piece. No, let's have a big piece. Let's be the biggest piece. There's nothing wrong with that, because I feel like for me, like I want to start building generational wealth for my community, for myself, for my people, for my children, for my grandchildren, for the generations that are to come. And so for me, I feel like that is probably the biggest piece that I would take away. Like I've recently, with my business partner, we've started another company that is kind of about that. It's called Sundance Financial Management. And so now we're having the problem of, so you have this excess funding, whatever, in your account, in your bank accounts, and it's not really growing in the way you'd want to. And so we would like to start going in that direction. And so investing for ourselves, and then as well in the future, investing for other clients. So right now we're starting with ourselves, but we're definitely have big plans to grow. And we're hoping to be like the next, Indigenous bank that can start capital and start lending to clients that meet our criteria. And so we just have so many big dreams and goals, and, have that in mind, right? Like don't start small, but dream big and have that big picture in mind, and have it mapped. Like sit down with your team, or if it's just yourself starting out, and create what you want to do. Have a visualization exercise where you're getting to where you feel your success and you feel whatever your goals are happening, and that it becomes real to you. So yeah, I guess that's my advice. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, I love that. And I'm really excited that not only within your community, but in this community and within the women entrepreneur community, we can all say, we want to be like Crystal. So very exciting. And I love that you're setting such a good role model.
We can do hard things.
So good, right? I love it. All right, I'm going to close it out. Melanie, if you are okay to just let us know a little bit more about what, looking back.
I would tell myself to give myself some grace and space and just, take some deep breaths. I'm surrounded by brilliant, powerful women in my business and in my life. And we are all have this stream of perfectionism. So when we had our crunchy, we call them crunchy financial times, but when we had our crunchy financial times, we were so hard on ourselves because we just felt like, oh my gosh, we're just failing. We're not making this work. Like, how come we can't figure this out? So it wasn't until we really made the time to reflect and be vulnerable with each other that we did start leaning into the right people. And we started leaning into asking the questions. And the message that I'm hearing, is that being comfortable talking about money. I grew up in a family where we did not talk about it. It was not something that my parents really taught me about or that I learned about. I'm divorced. That was one of the big reasons I just had this life of where I wasn't comfortable talking about money. So I'm just learning about that, about my relationship with money, to talk about it and to be confident and to do exactly what Crystal said. Think big. We have this big, huge vision and these big, huge goals. And now that and I say we, because there's 4 women running the company that I own, together, we now know that we have the team and the knowledge. So I would just tell myself to just have a glass of wine and just take a deep breath and know that our why was never questioned. We always knew our why. And we still do. We live it. We live our values. So I would just, tell myself to just take a deep breath.
I love that. Thank you. And I feel like that we can probably all put that in the back of our minds for the next time we're super stressed out and remind ourselves it's okay. And we all get to a spot in our businesses where it's not going to be perfect. None of us are. That perfectionism is such a huge piece. I hear it in all of the conversations at the table, so really important. Thanks, Melanie. And I would love to just take a second before we jump to questions and thank you so much for all of that information. It's so inspiring, and I'm just so excited to be one of the cheerleaders cheering all of you on. So if we can take a second and thank our panel, that'd be great. Amazing. All right, questions. Who's brave? Yay. She doesn't even need a microphone.
Oh, yeah, it might be easier. They're coming over.
We have a mic that'll come to you. You don't have to yell.
Hello, thank you. Fantastic answers. Thank you so much for being up there and sharing with us. Multiple times, multiple people talked about social capital, building a village, building relationships. How have you evaluated and chosen the people that you work with, that you delegate to? How do you reevaluate those relationships over time? What do you look for?
Wants to take that one?
I can start. What a great question. Thank you. It makes me just think about making wise choices and taking risks again. It took me a year. I knew exactly who I wanted to hire as my clinical director before we opened the second office, while we were building the second office. And I finally reached out to her and I knew what I wanted in this position. But we have to take risks. We have to make big decisions. It was a really unique position to fill. It was really unique to start to grow my leadership team because it took a lot of trust on my part to trust somebody to do all the things that I can't do anymore and do them in line with my own vision. So trust yourself, be willing to take risks, and take your time, maybe not as much time as I did, to really explore and kind of find those right people. That's my start anyway.
One of the things that when I crashed, as I mentioned about the culture, is someone told me about when I read the book Good to Great about EOS, Entrepreneurs Operating System. And it was one of the best things I ever did, and I put my whole management team through it, and we graduated. And now when we are adding teammates, I'm not saying hiring staff, for me it's adding teammates. It goes back to the culture. And when we do our interview process, you've got the skill set that's needed. I've got, depending on the department that's being hired, I don't get involved until the last little bit. And then I hire for our culture, which is our core values. Does that individual meet our 5 core values? So when I am meeting with them and doing an interview, I already know they have the skill set. That's not a problem. It's, do they come and do they fit into the family model that I'm building? We spend more time with our teammates during the week than we do with our own family. So it's so important that when you're building your team, that is what you value, are they bringing that to the table? Because if they're not, then they're not meant for your team, for your culture.
Thank you. Thank you both. Crystal, do you want to add into that?
Yeah, I actually do. I can't see the. Wait. Oh, okay, thanks. I really agree with what my fellow panelists are saying. And for me, when I do hiring, I am a big believer of, if I can, I try to do the interview in person if I can. And I'm a big believer in, I hire, not necessarily like you guys were saying, I'm not looking for the most skilled person per se. I am looking for the person that it's all about the energy for me. It's my intuition and my energy. Like, I want to hire someone that has a positive attitude, that's a go-getter, because you can teach the skills, but it's harder to change someone's mindset that's, inherently fearful or pessimistic, or I just don't, like, for me, it's all about that, is hiring on the connection, right? If you can share a little laugh or have a connection in the interview, then you know that they're probably going to fit in, right? And I also look for really good interpersonal skills, because my business is all about that, is building relationships. So for me, those are the important things. And we call them soft skills, but they're really not. They're so important. So those are some of the things that I look for.
Thanks, Crystal. Thanks, ladies, for answering.
I'm just going to say something really
jump
quick,
in.
because that would have been my answer, Crystal, is that I'm just learning to trust my intuition as a woman and a leader. And I wish I would have trusted myself sooner, because I made decisions when I knew kind of that in my gut it maybe wasn't the right one. So that's my self-work, is just, learning to trust that.
Such a good question and amazing answers. And Strategic Edge, one of the first things we do is identify your why. Why are you getting up? Why are you doing what you're doing? And then finding people that can match that, right? And I think that's what we're hearing in different ways. So it's really exciting to see these teams grow and see them fit. All right, we're going to move on to the next one. Next question. Do we have any more questions? You guys want me to sing a song? You don't. We'll just run the mic over.
Amazing panelists, thank you so much for your insight. My question is about, there's always the logic, you're thinking very hard about what you want to do, plan out everything. There's also that intuition I think Melanie was just talking about. Like, looking at your successes and failures and all that stuff, like, would you give us some insight, like which side wins? Like, what should you listen more? Some insights in that? Gut feelings, or is it logic?
I think it's both, which is a terrible answer maybe, but one of the things that we actually learned in I think it was Bold Leadership, but it's this goal complexity matrix. So it's just like a square of like a really simple decision-making matrix about kind of what are your quick wins, and what is this opportunity could be really, really successful, but it's going to take a lot of work. And so we kind of adopted that, but then and I say as clinicians, but maybe it's just women, like maybe it's not clinicians, but we would still balance that with, because we still have to keep doing our heart work. And like you said, aligning with your values and making sure, because there's some projects that we know we could do that would be really quick wins, and we could do the work and we could make the money, and it wouldn't take a lot of time or effort, but a lot of the time, unfortunately, that work doesn't really align with what we want to do. So depending where you're at financially, that might be a priority for you at that time. You might say, you know what, we're going to do this for 6 months. We're going to make the profit on this, and then we're going to reevaluate. But I think it's finding a way to balance both of it. And for our team, we have to acknowledge it and do it almost like formally, like acknowledge that we need to have both.
Love. Did I see somebody else down there?
I've got one thing. Know your own strength, what you're good at. It will help you in the decision, because one of the things with EOS is I'm the visionary. I'm always coming out with this that I think are very good creative ideas. And then I have my implementer who is then just kind of like, well, this is great, Milena. However, it's going to take this time. It's going to take this money. You're going to up this. Or she'll say, okay, that one is manageable after we could do 1, 2, and 3. So you have to know your own strength, because thank God, if it wasn't for her, it's like when I was saying about the right people in the right seat, I probably been like up and down within my organization of growth, failure. But I know what my strengths are. I will come up, I'll keep coming up with these good ideas, and some of them won't be, I think of it as good ideas, but then I'll have a teammate who will be on the practical side and saying, okay, she has the strength of the details, which I don't. I have the mindset of the creativity, and working together is going to make you successful.
Thank you. Amazing. And I think, too, all of you in here that have started a business, that did not just come from one quick idea, right? That is very much your intuition. So I do think, as much as I will preach strategy until the day that I am gone, that intuition is really, really important, even to get you started. So I'm really excited to hear more about everyone's business. And thank you all again for this amazing panel. I just want to stay here all day, which excited to hear the rest of you too. So we will wrap this part up, and I think we're good. Yeah, thank you. Thank you again, panel.